Here we are with a lovely portrait by Thomas Gainsborough. This portrait is titled Mrs. Richard Brinsley Sheridan. Her name is Elizabeth Lindley. Now, this portrait is a beautiful example of the type of portraiture done by Thomas Gainsborough. And I wish I put it together, but it's very or remarkably similar to what we saw with Van Dyck and Charles I dismounted, right? We have a figure in a very soft landscape in this very relaxed state, right? This is because Gainsborough was heavily influenced by Van Dyck. Now, this is also a beautiful example of how similar the Enlightenment and the Rococo can be, and yet how different they also are. I say that because what we have is a very soft color palette and very kind of arabesque movement of the lines of her body, and yet there is no excess or decadence or luxury. Instead, what we see is a young woman with unpowdered hair, a nice natural blush to her face without any kind of excess cosmetics. And while she's in a fine dress, it's not courtly attire, and she sits on this rock rather than some kind of elaborate throne. And there's no sex or intrigue or naughtiness going on here. So it isn't Rococo. So that's why we would call this the Enlightenment. It's also a beautiful portrait of this specific woman. Her name, Elizabeth Lindley. Now, Elizabeth Lindley, she eloped with the liberal politician Richard Brinsley Sheridan and shocked the world. Her husband, he was a politician and a playwright, and he worked in London, and his comedies were satiricals or satirized glamorous world of British society. Kind of think like Saturday Night Live skits. And Elizabeth, she did not like the fast life of England. Instead, she was quoted saying, "Take me out of the whirl of the world, place me in the quiet and simple scenes of life I was born for." She much preferred to be at the family country estate, and that's what she has depicted herself here. She is restful, calm, peaceful, at home, in the woods, this country wood. Ah, beautiful. So Gainsborough, he's showing her here as she is, without any pomp or circumstance or any kind of mythology attached to her. And that was really his characteristic style, was this natural approach or casual approach, but still being very lovely and flattering. I love this painting, and it is, it's at the National Gallery in Washington, D.C. So when you go, take your selfie, send it to me. Now, I'm going to combine this painting with Reynolds or I should say combine the videos, because these two work so closely together. They were like frenemies. And while they're both part of the Enlightenment, they are almost in opposition to the type or style of portraiture that they prefer. So what we are looking at here is by our next artist, Sir Joshua Reynolds. And the title of this, Lord Heathfield. There's Lord Heathfield. Now, Lord Heathfield, he's a ruddy, burly man. He's an English officer, as you can tell by this bright red coat. And he had the prestigious appointment of protecting the fort of Gibraltar. I've put the map here. Gibraltar is an area that is right next to what is referred to as the Strait of Gibraltar. It's a narrow part of the sea between the Mediterranean and the Atlantic. Now, it's in Spain, but this is a very contested area of land or property, because whoever controls this tiny portion of land basically controls all import and export out of the Mediterranean. It's a power seat, and it at this time is under constant fight of control between Spain and France and England. At the time this was painted, the English held it, and Lord Heathfield was in charge. So what we see here is a man with a noble cause for Britain, for England. Ah! Now, in this painting, Reynolds presents Lord Heathfield with his manly ruddy cheeks as he, blazes in the Spanish sun. He's got his powdered wig on, and he looks up and out as there's this cannon that's laid to rest, and we see this billow of thick black smoke. There's been a battle for Gibraltar. And is Lord Heathfield victorious? Yes, he still holds the keys to Gibraltar. Literally holding the keys right there. Aha! Strong British might. Now, I'm exaggerating all of my kind of speech right now because I want you to see how similar and yet different Reynolds is to Gainsborough. While Gainsborough is about this kind of soft, casual naturalism, Reynolds is about ennobling the figure and giving it this very grand scale, elevating his sitters to heroes of elegance and refinement and conviction and grace. This is what rewards Sir Joshua Reynolds with a knighthood, and not Gainsborough. Reynolds has the more prestigious commissions from more elevated society than Gainsborough, but I mean, don't feel bad for Gainsborough. He's totally fine. I love these two, and I told you they're frenemies. They are both English portrait artists who were running very successful careers at this time. To kind of drive this point home further, what if I was to show you the same person, one portrait by Reynolds, one portrait by Gainsborough, and then we could really see how similar and yet how different their styles are. Like this. This is Sarah Siddons. Oh, Sarah Siddons, if you are interested in the history of women and history of English society, you need to read up on her because she is, excuse my language, she's a badass. Sarah Siddons was a celebrated actress, and she made the newspapers because not only was she extremely talented, but it was also still fairly novel to have female actors. What? Before this, believe it or not, it was illegal for women to perform as actors in public because it was seen as obscene, like prostitution. Oh, she's up there being a person. Oh, no, she can't. That means she's a human. Oh, get her off the stage. So female parts were played by men. There were a few laws that had changed recently, and she's not the very first actress or female actor, but she's one of the few very big celebrity female actors. And not only was she extremely talented, but she was like super fashionable, and she was like a hit at all the society parties in London. Everybody copied her style. She just like had this crazy cool style. And then she shocked the world by marrying a politician. Oh, so she got into politics? Yes. So we have two paintings of Sarah Siddons, one by Gainsborough, one by Reynolds. And they help us understand and appreciate each of the artist's styles. So in Gainsborough, we see Sarah. Oh, I have to tell you, she was characterized by her very sharp profile. She had this fantastic nose, and she always really kind of like, not played it up, but it was her signature characteristic. So Gainsborough, he's included her in this very nice three-quarter position with her nose prominent, so we can be like, oh, Sarah, ooh. Her hair is piled up into this extreme elaborate hairdo, and there's some light dusting of powder, and then she's got this flamboyant hat and this gorgeous gown here, and this beautiful mustard stole with this fox fur. Now, this fox fur is specific and we would have, if we were alive at this time, easily recognized this as a political alliance. She was a supporter of a politician with the last name Fox. So fox fur. Now, we see her as a woman. She's sitting in a chair behind a red curtain, but those are all fairly traditional portrait props. So how do we know she's an actress? Well, she's finely dressed, which is characteristic of her. But do you see the stripes? Do you remember what I just told you in the Rococo lecture about stripes? Stripes mean two-faced, right? You can be blue with yellow stripes, or is this yellow with blue stripes? You can't tell. The cornflower blue and that butter yellow, is it one or the other? It's both. Just like an actor can hide and reveal or be both. Two-faced. He's speaking to her profession by making her wear stripes. Very clever. It's very different than Reynolds. Reynolds presents Sarah on this giant throne made of stone, and it's floating on these big, thick, gray clouds, and she's looking up and out at us, or up and out away from us, and behind her we have these two kind of haunting figures coming out of this miasma. Two figures are personifications of pity and terror. Oh! And she's here looking up and out, and there's this arm up, and she's kind of almost like, oh, in this daze, this trance. In her arm, Reynolds has lifted her arm up to reveal this beautiful flesh. The flesh color doesn't match face color. Why? You're right. Makeup. Actors or actor makeup. She's wearing her stage makeup, and he's showing her flesh tone to emphasize that she's in a performance right now. And she's in this gorgeous grand dress with this beautiful purple aubergine skirt. Oh, goodness gracious. So two very different representations of Sarah, and it's nice to show you this here because, well, I like to show them because they're frenemies, but also, just a heads up, if you want to look really smart the next time you go to a museum, if a museum has both a Gainsborough and a Reynolds painting, I bet you 100% they will be next to each other in the room because they offer such a nice comparison. At the Legion of Honor, there we go. Gainsborough and Reynolds, right there. 1, 2. So next time you go to a museum and you come upon a Reynolds and you're like, oh, Mom, do you see this Reynolds? There must be a Gainsborough somewhere. Oh, there it is. Your mom is going to be so impressed. She's going to be like, oh, my child is so smart. It's at our history class. And you'll be like, thanks, Miss Cortez.